So, according to some reports, Donald Trump is incredibly upset that not a lot of his supporters have come out to protest for him in front of the Manhattan criminal courthouse that he finds himself in for at least the next 6 weeks. His major ego has been damaged because every single day that he's been in trial, the number of protesters outside of the courthouse has been lackluster. Maybe a few people, a handful of people, if he's lucky, but it's certainly not the crowd that Donald Trump wants or desires or usually expects from his cult-like following. So I have a New York Times article with this reporting to show you, and interestingly enough, Donald Trump himself actually responded to this reporting on Truth Social earlier today. So we're going to take a look at that statement along with a variety of other things that just debunks what he says. But yeah, Donald Trump is not happy. So this New York Times article I have for you is called "The Circus Trump Wanted Outside of His Trial Hasn't Arrived," and it certainly hasn't. The first paragraph says Donald J. Trump was evidently not happy with what he saw out of the window of his chauffeured SUV as he rode through Lower Manhattan on Monday morning for the beginning of opening arguments in his first criminal trial. So this was yesterday that Donald Trump was looking outside and didn't see many protesters for him, and he actually tried to get a protest going. He tried to rally his supporters. Another paragraph in the article says Mr. Trump had tried to gin up something noisier. Shortly after 7 a.m., he posted on his social media website that, quote, America-loving protesters should be allowed to protest at the front steps of the courthouse. And he followed this lament with a call for his supporters to, quote, go out and peacefully protest, rally behind MAGA, save our country. Now, it's important to note that the steps of the courthouse are usually not open to protesters, certainly not when there's a president of the United States there. But you're already seeing what Donald Trump is doing, saying they're blocking them from being on the steps. They're blocking them. My supporters are out there. I promise. They're just being blocked, which is, of course, fantasy land. This guy is not living in reality. There's no big crowd out there for him. He's just lying. And Trump's campaign was even asked to comment on the lackluster nature of the protests for him, and his spokeswoman, Carrie Ann Levitt, tried to connect it to the DA and President Biden and insisted that people were being prevented from being in Lower Manhattan because of barricades, which is, again, nonsense. So you're seeing this kind of shift. They went from, hey, everybody come out to protest for me, and then it turned into, well, they must be being blocked from getting down there. They must not be allowed to be down there, which, again, couldn't stress enough, is not true. Joe Biden, and it's crazy to even say, but Joe Biden and District Attorney Alvin Bragg are not blocking protesters. There's no sinister ploy in action to make sure that Donald Trump supporters are not represented at this courthouse. They are free to be out there. Nobody's just showing up. Nobody cares enough. None of his supporters, at least in the surrounding areas, have enough time or love for him to show up outside of the courthouse and protest. And continuing from what his spokesperson said, Donald Trump later in the morning at around 8:50 a.m. tried to insinuate that protesters were being blocked. He put out this statement on Truth Social saying, Lower Manhattan surrounding the courthouse where I'm heading now is completely closed down. So unfair is what he says. So unfair. But as is everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, it's untrue. The New York Times had to fact check him after including that in their article, saying the area was not, in fact, completely closed down. The courthouse has remained open to the public, including spectators who want to attend the trial. Pool cameras in the hallway and even the sidewalk in front of the courthouse has remained open to pedestrian traffic. 20 minutes later, Mr. Trump compared the courthouse to an armed camp. So literally anybody, if you live in New York City or you want to fly in for the spectacle, anybody can be in front of this courthouse. There's nothing stopping people. And Donald Trump's own supporters actually contradict what he's arguing for here. Because today, there was actually a supporter of Donald Trump's, funnily enough, in front of the courthouse, but it was one guy. It was one guy. Here's the picture of him. He was holding a Trump flag in front of the courthouse, but he managed to get into the protest area. But I thought everybody was blocked off, Donald. So how did this guy magically get in there through all these armed barricades and all these cops that are apparently blocking off the courthouse? What happened, Donald? It's because he just walked there. This is a guy who is using his First Amendment right, who I disagree with. But he walked there. Nobody's barricading him. He managed to show up, but apparently Donald Trump still thinks there's this like conspiracy, but this guy apparently is okay, but everybody else isn't. Please. Oh, and here's a picture of the courthouse midday during Donald Trump's trial. You can see not a protester in sight. And you can walk around this area. There's nothing blocking people from walking around. You can walk around this area. Nobody's just showing up. And also, we have video footage from outside of the courthouse taken by a journalist called Vaughn Hillard. He managed to do like a pan of the entire courthouse and the park in front of it. And as you'll notice, there's nobody there. Here's that clip. Yeah, as you can see in that video, there's plenty of room for demonstrators. Plenty. Trump supporters could show up and demonstrate if they wanted to. They're just not showing up. You even saw pedestrians walking around in that clip. None of them are Trump supporters. None of these folks care enough to go out there and worship the cult leader, Donald Trump. And his ego is so badly damaged. Oh, how dare they? They broke his heart. Like, seriously, get over yourself, Donald. But his ego, his arrogance is too big. So, of course, he is doubling down on this conspiracy theory that they were blocked. And he put out this statement on Truth Social today, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And he wrote, thousands of people were turned away from the courthouse in Lower Manhattan by steel sanctions and police, literally blocks from the tiny side door from where I enter and leave. It is an armed camp to keep people away. Maggot Haberman, it's his take for Maggie Haberman, the journalist from the New York Times, of the failing New York Times, falsely reported that I was disappointed with the crowds. No, I'm disappointed with Maggie and her lack of writing skill, and that some of these police aren't being sent to Columbia and NYU, et cetera, et cetera. The rant goes on. He calls it a hoax, the usual stuff from Donald Trump. But you can see his ego's damaged, that all of these people were apparently turned away. Where are they? Where are all these people? Nobody has like a video of them, of all these Trump supporters magically getting turned away? So all of these other pedestrians can walk around and that one Trump supporter can be there, but somehow this group of MAGA lunatics were turned away by police? It's a lie. It's a doubling down of a conspiracy theory to save his ego. And he's just very upset. His heart is broken. His supporters are not showing up for him in the way that he would like to. His heart is broken. He's taken a hit in the ego. But as always, there's a conspiracy to follow. It can never just be that nobody's showing up. It can never just be the most logical conclusion of this all. No, it has to be a major conspiracy. It has to be something and someone being mean to him. This guy is a man-child. He is a child. He's a child in a man's suit. That's who Donald Trump is. As I said about Marjorie Taylor Greene the other day, he is the toddler in the middle of the grocery store, kicking his feet, having a temper tantrum. That's Trump right now with his protesters not showing up. So yeah, that's Trump. That's his new conspiracy theory. That's what his heart is breaking about today. And man, is this guy just such a child, such a tiny little man, isn't he? But anyway, I'll leave the video there. I appreciate you watching. Make sure to subscribe down below. It goes such a long way. I greatly appreciate it. Also, drop a like on the video. Comment, let me know what you think. And I just thank you for being here. It means the world, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.